But there's definitely something there that is yet to be learned, and I don't think they spoon-fed it to us through CNN or MSNBC on the first day that it happened, because we know how much those people do as far as investigations. What rumor can we put in the ticker right now? I mean, it's a rumor mill, and you're just seeing what different people call in. And I realize that human beings are fallible, and that no one's given exactly information that's correct at the time when they're reporting that. But you see all these contradictions, and they don't feel the need to explain it away. The news, the news.
And this kind of fuels the fire of confusion ultimately too, because this becomes the evidence of revision problem, right? So a story breaks.
Yeah.
And there's all this information that comes out about it.
Sure, like Sandy Hook.
A lot of it's wrong.
Yeah.
And then people who we could call conspiracy theorists,
sure,
who make a lot of these YouTube videos.
People who think crisis actors are always involved.
Exactly. They say, but look, 5 minutes after they were saying this. So that creates a storm of confusion in its own right. These people not actually doing investigation, just spreading rumors.
So you're just saying there's a fine line between actual investigation and noticing the contradictions to...
That media format just doesn't really allow for that. And I'm not saying that it's the fault of the format, because you've got CNN and MSNBC,
they're
Fox,
competing, but they're not competing.
All to be... Isn't that interesting? To all be first with something, and it doesn't matter what it is.
Or
it's
if it was
as long
correct
as people
in hindsight,
are tuned in. Right. No, of course, that never matters.
What matters is how many people actually view them, not how often they get the news right.
How many stupid questions they can ask and how many stupid answers they can get.
It's like a rumor about a Wall Street company can make the stock go down, yet the company might do good business and all this other stuff. So the actual actions of that corporation aren't what drives... I'm saying there's a disconnect between a stock price and what a company actually does. Just like there's a disconnect between what the media companies call their success, the MSNBC, CNN, because they got viewers, and when the success metric should be accurate information.
Well, accuracy is not incentivized. No. Eyes on your channel is all that's incentivized.
Right.
Yeah. And how does this confusion benefit the ruling class? How do these things... I mean, once again, you can count the ways.
The audience between MSNBC and CNN and Fox, they're all divided in society, because you get the Fox angle, or you get CNN, or you get MSNBC. Not many people will cruise back and forth between channels and be like, what are these people actually being told? And then you think about who owns those companies and why they might be telling them that stuff, and maybe not some of this other stuff that an investigative journalist might find.
It's a noise to signal ratio.
Yep. And signal to noise, yeah.
Well, in this case, noise to signal, right? And which is how it benefits them. Right. Because then, people are like, oh, gosh, that's a tremendous amount of noise. And the signal is Fox, the signal is CNN, the signal is MSNBC, the signal is President Obama. That's what passes as the signal, because everything else is just a cacophony.
I just remember reading someone comment about how that wife, former cheerleader, she's guilty. I'm reading this guy and I'm like, really, dude? And this how? How can
whatever happened to the attitude that 99 guilty people should go free so that one man was not in prison wrongly? Right? Isn't that how the saying goes? Mm-hmm. Where you value actually getting things right, and sometimes you make a mistake, but you're not penalizing innocent people in those mistakes necessarily. So I think it's a values change between what people actually accept as truth and justice, or enforced fairness through laws or culture or whatever, and what actually goes on. And while the talking heads on the media will tell you one thing, they're doing that, putting up a wall so that this other stuff goes on behind.
I think when people are, of course, there's the emotional impact going on. We have these emotional responses. So if people were traumatized in the years leading up to the present, if they were punished and they were rewarded sometimes, there is a serious, unfortunate emulation of that behavior where they want to see other people punished and perhaps some certain other people rewarded. And it fulfills that little emotional space in them. And rather than for them to turn the camera back on themselves and look directly at it, it's very much instead just no, I'm going to listen to this inner voice. I want to see some pain going on. Not looking at the restitution factor, they're looking at a punishment system.
Well, and Mike Judge pointed that out, I don't know if that was his point, but in Idiocracy, Ow My Balls is a bunch of people sitting around. The most popular show is watching somebody hurt themselves, right? And that actually has turned into a phenomenon today of reality TV shows. And it's like, people get on reality TV shows, and that they're being scripted and all that other stuff behind the scenes, and yet it's severely successful right now in the markets.
I think the entire political arena is ouch my balls. Because that's really what it is. It's like I want to see bad things happen to my enemies.
Yeah, instead of solutions to our problems, we're being incentivized to watch people like beat each other up.
But they're just your enemies in your mind because they're not actually physically doing anything to you, right?
But they,
policies.
but the people who are competing in this political process right now are for the highest office. They seem to have this perfectly calculated. Nobody has a message of. I mean, they have slogans like Donald Trump says, "Make America Great Again." I don't know what Bernie Sanders' slogan is, but if you listen to how they're engaging people with their speech, it's all about look. Somebody's got to fucking pay, and I'm the guy to make them pay, right? It's the same deal with Bernie Sanders as it is with Donald Trump. Donald Trump's like, we're shipping people out, we're throwing nets over people and sending them home, and Bernie Sanders says, we're gonna stick it to the people who can stick it to you.
They're pointing fingers at telling you who's wronging you.
Yeah. And so that's traumatic conditioning 101.
Exactly.
We have these people doing
Here's what's
that.
wrong, and
I
I'll
think
tell you how to
that
fix it.
someone like Kevin Cole is a better candidate. If we're going to have a president, I think he's more qualified than any of the people actually running.
Yeah, no conversation there. I got no comment on that.
He's like no
Anyone
masters,
that accepts president is not
slaves.
fit for it.
No masters, no slaves.
If we're going to make the concept of president obsolete, then what I'm going to need to see innovation-wise is something that is as powerful as torrenting and like free, like movement of information did for the, collectivized version of I'm going to the store to rent this DVD, Yeah. I need to see a version of that where like real solutions are moving in that direction.
Well, like in a model of the world that's not accurate of the reality, you have a concept like, okay, everyone could just vote over their smartphones and would all have direct representation. And then somebody in the back of the room says, what happens when they hack that? And they start messing with it. So what is the real problem? Is it that we don't have the technology to actually represent ourselves? No, that's not our problem. We all have these devices, or, we know people who have these devices, and you could actually directly represent yourself and vote, and we could actually, have a fair world. But what's the problem with that? The history of corruption in the past. If you don't look at that, you're like, we could all have that. And it's like, well, why do we still have this corruption that's been plaguing humanity? Oh, because that's always going to go on. That's part of freedom. That some people are going to break rules or make rules or whatever, and that goes on. So I think knowing that has existed the whole time humanity's existed, we just have to figure out, that's going to go on. How can we have the lowest amount of people being damaged from that process that we can't really do anything about? Right? Are we damaging less people having a drug war in this country where everything's prohibited and only the strongest and most ruthless people are in control? Or might we have, a different result under freedom where less people are victimized and.
Well, I mean, all of those things are outgrowth of a system that doesn't work anyway. Because I'm thinking as you said this, and this is a separate subject, and I'll just touch on it. What if, because people always say, what the problem is in politics? It's money. Get the money out of politics, you'd probably be fine. I was like, yeah. It's like saying, let's get the nuts away from the squirrels. It's like that's what they do. They get the nuts. Yeah. The people in politics are there because it is this coercive way of redistributing resources in their favor. That's the whole purpose of it. It's like saying, let's get the politics out of politics. And I think that even if you could, let's just imagine you could get all the corruption out of politics. And you have a system that people, what do they use their phone? Is this how it works? You use your phone and you pick your representative.
Yeah.
Well, imagine this poor bastard who now, his name is Jim, he's 58, he retired from his job, he wanted to do public service. Now he has to represent the needs of 500,000 different people.
Yeah, I don't get how that works even in a perfect world.
It's not going to because it's a monopoly. Right. And in every single case, a monopoly is going to...
Do we have to pay a fee to Parker's Brothers to say that word?
It's...
Lowercase monopoly.
Monopoly, yeah.